As I really explained at the beginning, this morning's theme, Finding Christ at the Table, made my mind immediately jump to the dining table. Now, maybe that's because I have particular family traditions and things that I associate with the Christmas meal, if you like, that tends to go, well, pretty much the whole day, if I'm honest. We sort of start as soon as we get home from church, and nibbles and biscuits and special treats come out that lead into lunch, and then as you sort of pour yourself into the couch, it sort of continues until somebody says, well, what about dinner? And we also go, oh, and crawl over to back to the dining table again. I don't know if you've ever seen the Vicar of Dibley Christmas, where I can relate to that very much. Anyhow, the table, I think, figures fairly centrally for many people in terms of their Christmas traditions and what happens in their household and their family, and how it all centres around that table. And this morning we're going to celebrate, I guess, Christ's table, if you like. It's certainly Christ's meal that he called us to share together. And when we did so, we would remember all that he's done for us. But as I was thinking about that and our Christmas traditions, what did come to mind was this tradition that's not necessarily ours for Christmas. It's the one of having an empty seat. Now, I don't know if you do it much or whether you're familiar with it, but in Jewish tradition, there was a thing that they did at their Seder, which is the special meal of remembrance that we celebrate here. At Easter time, they would have this particular meal and remember the Exodus. And it began that they would have an extra seat, and they would, I think even before the seat, it started with just a cup that was supposed to be Elijah's cup. Because you remember there was the prophecy that said Elijah would come before the Messiah, and he would tell people the Messiah is coming. Okay, and so that's why in our readings today, the Jews were saying to John, well, are you Elijah? I know, I'm assuming they were thinking metaphorically. Are you the one who's come, who's going to tell us that the Messiah is coming? And he said, well, I'm not Elijah, but I am the one Isaiah said would come and prepare the way of the Messiah. I am that one. And so in their tradition, around their table, they would have a cup for Elijah. And I read that there were even jokesters around the table that would sort of knock the table during the meal so that there would be some of the wine spilt, and they could go, oh, Elijah's been drinking, he's spilt it, as a bit of fun. It developed into an empty seat, not just a cup, but the empty seat. And it was an acknowledgement that they were longing for this figure to come who would sort of start proceedings, who would let them know that the Messiah is coming, that he's nearly here, he's just around the corner. And they were looking for things to start that so much that they prepared that seat and they remembered, we are waiting for that person. And do you know what happened in that tradition? And it's interesting because there are lots of sort of similar things even at in all the Defence Forces when they have a dining night for whatever reason, celebrating whatever it might be. We have them as the pilots graduate, but also at the end of every year, squadron have one, and we have an empty seat for the fallen soldier, and it's to remember comrades who never came home, and we have a toast, and we have their hat, and we set a place for them. And remember them in that way. And so I guess it's a similar thing. I was thinking about finding Christ at our dining table. This are attempts to find Christ in Christmas, particularly focusing around the table. And I was thinking about the empty seat and this longing to see Christ, this waiting that we have, that we want to see Jesus in our midst. And the empty seat came to mind. This year, an interesting thing happened at our Christmas table, or for our Christmas table. Astrid came home from school one day and said, "Oh, I was talking to Leon from work. They don't have anywhere to go, so I told them they could come to us for Christmas and share Christmas lunch." And I'm sure you can guess my reaction. Seriously, I was like, "Oh, really? More people?" I guess sometimes for me, Christmas lunch, if I'm honest, can be a bit too much because we have all the reallys come, and if Astrid's not here, her reallys tend to be a bit loud, and it gets a bit much for me if I'm really honest. Okay, you can tell Astrid; she knows. She knows. I forgot about the camera. Oops. Anyhow, and the thought of having extra people that I don't really know and don't really have very much in common with coming to share my special meal, it just made me think, oh. And when I came to prepare this, I realised this is exactly what we are called to. And I was a bit disappointed at my own reaction, I have to say, because do you know what? My mum's been doing this to me ever since I was little. She would always be bringing people home from church or bringing people home from work and saying, "Oh, so-and-so's coming to do. You've had that, Justin, have you?" Yeah, I can tell. Yeah, that's right. And there are some people who are like that. We'll just say, "Oh, you don't have any, come to our place, the more the merrier." I guess I'm not that person naturally. My wife is, and my mother is still. She's always doing it. And but as I was thinking about Christ's table and how He's invited me to that table, and I was the blow-in, and so were we, I felt that I may not be that person naturally, but I'm called to be that person, maybe habitually, maybe I'll grow into it naturally. It perhaps has to start a bit more deliberately than natural, but that's okay, because when I think about what Christ has done, I feel more gracious, and I feel that somehow I have the capacity to welcome somebody in genuinely graciously, and that I want to share. And all of a sudden the meal becomes more about them than about me. And I think that's a good thing. I was thinking about the stranger who came along to share our meal last night. And I got a little bit of time to chat to him. But I was thinking, well, isn't that great that he came along and shared in our meal and shared in the carol singing together? I thought, I wonder what message he got in terms of, if that is his Christmas, what he got from that. And from our carols, singing all about Christ. My hope was the real message of Christmas got through, and it's not in our carols, is that in coming into our little family and sharing a meal, I hope he felt welcome. I hope he felt like he was a part of the family for the evening, because that's the Christmas message, isn't it? More so than just singing about it or, saying, "O come Emmanuel." It would be great if the stranger came and filled that empty seat and they felt welcome. I don't know whether you're the receivers this Christmas and you're going to someone else's table, or maybe there is an opportunity for you to grab somebody and fill the empty seat that you could have to remind you of Christ in your midst, because I deeply believe it is God's table that we're celebrating and that we're invited to it and we're called to invite others to it. So you might like to think about that as you prepare your table this year, whether there is an empty seat. But if you did put out an empty seat, could you fill it? Because that would be one step better.